I mentioned a few meetings ago a quote I came across, which I just loved because it captured something so simply, such clarity, and I think it was attributed to the teacher Nisargadatta. Don't quote me on that, but something along the lines of the world appears as differentiated, which it clearly does. One thing differentiated from the next, and yet, despite that differentiation of all the different aspects of experience of the world, strangely enough, paradoxically enough, differentiated, but it's not separate. There's no separation. I want to explore that a little bit with you. So we could start, with our eyes open and looking at what we call the visual field. And I'm looking at sky and trees, clouds in the sky, different colors in the sky, and there's a fence here. All these, what I would call objects, right, in the visual field, that are very distinct. They're, in other words, they show up as differentiated one from the other, and as I'm sure you're also beholding in your visual field, whatever it is you're beholding right now, right? One thing from the next. This distinction and differentiation, which is how we seem able to recognize one thing from the next, right? But as you're looking at the visual field and all this seeming differentiation, notice something interesting, and that is that there's actually, the differentiation suggests that there's an object, and then that object ends, and then the next object begins, right? That's how there's a distinction there. But look at the edges from one differentiated portion of the visual field to the next. Like I'm looking at the tree in the sky in my visual field. And there's no edges in the visual field, are there? Really look. There's no clear edges. It's, you probably aren't seeing a rainbow right now. I'm not, but I've been using that metaphor quite a bit of late because it's such a, it's so illustrative on so many levels. But one is the one I'm speaking of right now, which is that the colors of the rainbow show up as differentiated, which is how we describe them as different colors, right? Just look at the edgeless nature of the rainbow of your experience. You see one differentiated color from the next, right? But just like the rainbow, it's a spectrum, isn't it? It's a spectrum of light. You're seeing a spectrum of light and color right now, aren't you, in the visual field, just like a rainbow? And just as the rainbow shows up as differentiated colors, as a spectrum, there's no actual edges to anything that's differentiated, seemingly, right? This is amazing. It's amazing to see the edgeless nature of everything being seen. You see that? It's one, we could say one light show. It shows up as distinctive, different shades and colors, right? But actually it's one seamless continuum, one spectrum of light. Now, that's just the visual field, but we can apply the same sort of investigation into any aspect of experience. So we could do it visually. Let's stick with that for a moment. And if you look at me, what you think of as me, as an object, right? And then look at yourself as an object, body. And notice how, yes, there's distinction. You know, I'm other than you, right? Like I show up as differentiated, distinct from you visually. But where is the edge? Where, like, this is what's so interesting is like we feel like this is the way the differentiation is created, I guess, is some sense of everything has an outline, like an edge to it. But notice that I, as an object, I don't have a clear edge any more than the colors of the rainbow do. So what you think of as this, now, if you want, you can either imagine yourself as separate from me, as a subject, and I'm the object, you know, that your subject is perceiving, the subject of you. And you can do that visually. You can close your eyes and just feel that sense of the difference of, like, you know, whatever. Where do you draw the dividing line between you and me, subject and object? Yes, we have this sense of the differentiation, like you're not me, right? But now feel the way in which, feel your experience of yourself, what you think of as yourself, the subject of you, and then what's not you, let's say me, the world outside of you. And notice, just as we did with a visual field, that you don't find any edges. There's no edges. This is extraordinary because it contradicts our conventional notions of a bounded world filled with separate parts and pieces, one distinct from the next, one different and separated from the next. And when we just sort of take this for granted, and yet feel your experience and notice that you don't find edges. You do not find edges anywhere. You don't find a clear edge. I mean, maybe one of the most fundamental edges we imagine to be an edge, an end of some kind, right? A boundary of some kind is the body, right? And feel your body or your skin. And notice you don't find an edge either, do you? You don't find an edge. Notice that. Notice that the edgeless nature of what you think of as this boundedness. It's absolutely wide open, isn't it? No edge. No edge to you. You find an edge? You find an end? Do you feel a boundary anywhere? What's the nature? If you feel a boundary, what's the nature of that boundary? Does it have a hard edge? Or do we just presume that there's a boundary? That this reality of ours, of experience, is somehow bounded and separated, all these pieces and parts. It shows up differentiated as pieces and parts. You know, thought shows up thinking. You know, if you think a thought right now, the thought of what you might do later today, just bring that thought to mind. And now listen to my voice. I'm listening to my voice, and the voice is the sounds are very distinct, clearly differentiated from thought, the thoughts about the sound of my voice, let's say, or what you might do later today. Notice those differentiated fields, dimensions of experience, we could say. And notice again that you don't find, it shows up as these two distinct phenomena, thought and sound. But tell me, where's the edge of the thought field? And where's the edge of the sound field? You see, they're blended, they're seamless, they're a whole. It's like a marvelous paradox to me of they show up as different and distinct and identifiable, like the colors of the rainbow again. But you cannot find where the thought field comes to some end. It doesn't have a firm boundary or edge to it, and where sound begins, right? What is it that distinguishes them? You can't really say. It's like they're like different, we could say they're like different textures of life. Distinctive, and yet everything blends into everything else at the same time. Feel the seamless nature of this whole, the whole of your experience. That there's just absolutely no division anywhere, no separation from one thing to the next, no separation from the subjective and the objective, from the inside and the outside. Those categories can be experienced. You can experience yourself as distinct from the world, right? In the same way you can distinguish the indigo from the red in the rainbow, right? You can distinguish the differences. I can distinguish the tree from the sky, as I was saying. You can distinguish yourself from the world, the body from what is not the body. But from this other vantage, you can distinguish them, but there's no separation at the same time, right? This is a dance of this inseparability and distinction. It's like the ordinary mind doesn't really compute because it can't be both ways. It can't be indivisible and yet seemingly divided, right? And different and distinct. But it is exactly that way. This is what we're feeling. I can feel the way in which I am not you. And then I go to try to find where I end and you begin, and I come up empty-handed. I find nothing but a seamless, edgeless whole of experiencing, right? You feel that? Feel that. That's really let yourself enjoy that seamless whole of this field. We're so accustomed to the sense of division and separation and distinction, and just, we have a tendency, there's not a lot of discussion in the world about that this is a whole, that this is seamless, that this is undivided. But if you feel your experience, you can quickly see that there are no edges to anything, right? Where are the edges? This is a vast, limitless expanse of experiencing, isn't it? Absolutely. I mean, even if you venture out spatially, so to speak, of like where's the edge of the field of experience, right? It might feel like it's this circumscribed kind of localized bubble somehow, that you exist within this bubble of experience, this circle of experience. But what's the edge of the bubble of your experience? What is the edge of this circle, of this localization? So it's very odd, because it's like there is this sense, we have this idea of here, right? The localization of me and my experience, my world. And then there's some world, vast world outside of me. But experientially, we don't actually find any end to any end to here, right? Any edge. Where's the edge of here? Where does here end? And presumably some there that's not here. Oh, it's over there. Where, you see, there's no edge. It's incredible, isn't it? In that sense, there's no space. There's no here and there. Feel that. There's no here and there separate from one another. Just let yourself really feel that seamlessness. We can talk about here and there, and from one perspective, experience life as I'm here and you're over there, the world's over there, the trees and the sky are over there, I'm here. But it breaks down when you just feel the presence of the you that's here and the world that's there, and you just feel experience. You just feel the moment. It's a seamless feeling. It's the feeling of over there feels like the feeling of here. Right? Because even if you imagine, like, I'm going to feel, how do you know there's something over there that's not here? Well, you feel that, the presence of what's not here. And now you're feeling, in other words, everything is here. There's just here. There's just here. It's this beautiful dance of seeming separation and inseparability happening somehow together. This is, I say, it's like one vantage, you look out at the sea and you see all these separate waves. And you can see how one wave is distinct from the next wave, right? It's got its own unique shape. That wave, it looks different than that wave, and it does. And then you can just make a little shift in perspective and realize, wow, there's no waves. There's just a seamless whole that we call the ocean. And here's this seamless whole right now of reality, a seamless whole of existence. Boundless, edgeless, undivided. And of course, the search for the whole, the search for God, the search for the transcendental absolute reality is sort of funny in the context of this indivisibility, because you are the whole. That's what you are. You are none other than the whole. There's just the whole. That can look like all these separate parts and pieces, but you are the transcendental infinite. And the separate you shows up as an aspect of that, just like it does for me. John. No denying John. The experience of John, the individual John. But that individual, just with a little turn of perception, can be seen to be undivided and without boundary or edge at the same time. Well, which one is it? Am I a separate autonomous creature or not? Well, it's really like neither of those really. This transcends both of those ways of holding it and characterizing it. We see this paradox just everywhere. I mean, paradox after paradox, like the sense that there's something here that's enduring, the moment that we can talk about our experience and talk about one another's lives. And that we can only do that if there's seemingly enduring things to talk about, right? But at the same time, we can feel how the experience has no endurance whatsoever. It doesn't last at all. It's that unstable. It's that ever vanishing. Something that's here for no time. And yet, in this timelessness, somehow, magically, inexplicably, a world of time and space is born. Right now, here we're partaking of that world as well, aren't we? No denying sense of the flow of time. We've been together here, this 20 whatever minutes. There's this flow of time. At the same time, there's no time whatsoever. The moment's not here for any time. So in all of this, just to kind of finish by saying that all these explorations that I invite folks into, just playing with these different perspectives, just a different way of seeing that we're less accustomed to as a rule. And it's a different way that has a very different feel to it. I think most primally, most fundamentally, from the perspective of the seeming separation of the subjective and the objective, me as subject living in an objective world, it can feel like, oh my God, this is happening to me, and this is overwhelming to me, and this is a potential threat to me, and I'm the victim of this, right? That relationship, like I'm subject